Seema, could you put that put the email I sent out? You may have gotten more than one email from me because I was having one incredible difficult. I was thinking of Bob, if maybe Bob wrote that the second paragraph. Have we got Bob there?
Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Good.
Okay, Jeff, yeah, my computer gave up. So I'm on my phone and everything is so small, I'm having a hard time reading. So I'd rather not tonight. Thank you, though.
Yeah. How about Rich? How's your visibility?
All right, all right. After a week off? Yeah, after a week off. Oh, this Sunday, we will get.
No, it's I thought the second paragraph. Yeah.
All right. I thought we might go back and reread the section on shuffle off the residue in the oh, you know what? On my computer, I can't read the end words on the screen.
Uh-oh.
I never have been able to. I forgot. I'm sorry. I guess.
Okay.
I can't move it
How
over.
about go her?
Sure, Jeff. All right, maybe the third one's a charm, huh?
Yeah.
I thought we might go back and reread the section on shuffle off the residue in the chapter on expressing ourselves on page 57. Here, Darwin gives some invaluable and practical insights into giving everything to Baba, including even our resistances to giving to him. In my own experience of Darwin, I would observe that anything that came into his consciousness, the slightest flicker of irritation, the faintest note of sadness, the earliest stir of wanting, were instantly given to Baba. He held on to nothing. He encouraged us to give everything to Baba until he would describe it. We reach a state of constant giving to Baba. This creates a simple yet magnificent experience of flowing to Baba and into the world around us. As we pour ourselves more and more into Baba, holding on to nothing, ironically, we actually feel more and more complete. Each session evokes invaluable discussion that does not require having attended the previous sessions. With each section stands alone and provides a window into the inner life of the lover/beloved relationship and is virtually independent, like facets of one diamond. Baba.
Okay, let me gotta figure out how this thing works. Just to say a little bit beforehand, and thank you for coming. I hope you all got through Silence Day without breaking your silence. I did not succeed. But anyway, so back in 1970, when I lived up near Darwin and Jean Shaw and began going to their meetings, I had only a vague idea of what was meant by giving things to Baba.
Jeff, we can't see your face.
What's that?
We can't see your face.
Oh my God.
There you are. I have to see your face.
I know, it's weird, is that I'm
You're good now. Fine.
okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, my idea back then of giving to Baba was when I was struggling with some emotion or disturbing thoughts, I would just say Baba's name, just say Baba's name until I got some relief. But I had no idea that you could actually give things to Baba, these disturbing thoughts and emotions, until I kind of got connected started going to Darwin's meetings. And there was actually a method of giving these interior things in me to Baba. And so little did I know that I kind of stumbled upon somebody who inspired by Baba himself, I mean, directly, was, you might say, a master of this method, meaning that Darwin. And his whole thing was to focus deeply on those complexes, on those disturbing thoughts, mental disturbance, taking the time to experience it deeply. And then, I mean, taking some time rather than, oh, Baba, here's my worry, but feeling that worry or that complex, feeling it deeply, and then imagining it flowing energetically to Baba. And so that's kind of what I gather. Darwin used to say, the deeper the feeling, the deeper the healing. So that's kind of, as a young kid, that was, I got that great help. There's a line that I like from Rumi, where he says, the beloved is the master tailor, but until you gather the scattered strands of your life into a single thread, how will you be able to pass through the eye of his needle? Succeed in this, and day by day, he will sew you into the magnificent tapestry of his own being.
Wow.
I'll say that again. This is Rumi. The beloved is the master tailor, but until you can gather the scattered strands of your life into a single thread, how will they be able to pass through the eye of his needle? Succeed in this, and day by day, he will sew you into the magnificent tapestry of his own being. So we have to make some effort on our side, and with the effort, we get the grace.
Hey, Jeff, did you allude to that Darwin taught you how to give it internally to Baba? And if I got that right, can you please explain how you do it?
I mean, I thought I just said what I would do is like, say you've got, a real problem with your father, some intense emotions. And you go into that whole complex and feel it deeply, and, going back in time, and then imagine that either Baba is before you or Baba within you, and imagine that flowing energetically to Baba. And it's not like the complex goes away magically. You give him one layer there, but there's a layer behind it that looks just like it. So it doesn't feel like he received it. But you have to have faith. I mean, Baba really kind of gave me the faith that even though you're not seeing results, you are emptying out your heart for me so that I can live in your heart. That's the... So, yeah, the main thing is just try it and see if it works. It certainly... Here's a beautiful thing. Well, I'd like to maybe later on find out, in giving things to Baba, have you noticed after many years that things were a problem way back when are no longer the major problem? Because over the years, you've given layer by layer to Baba. I mean, I've seen that, a lot of instances of that in my own life. Things that used to bother me and everything just they bother me for shorter periods of time. Someone might insult you and it might bother you for 3 months. Now you might be able to get through it in 3 hours. You still sometimes feel it, but you get through it a lot faster. Anyway, so let's go to the book here, and let's see. How about Marta? Have you got
Yep, I'm ready.
and it's on page
57 in the book.
Okay, good.
I feel that this practice of giving everything to Baba is one of our most valuable assets. We develop a habit of quickly giving everything to him and accepting his grace. Have no concern, yet at the same time, deep concern. By having deep concern, I mean becoming aware at the first subtle sign of tiny fibers of samskaric veils that we have unwittingly accepted and giving them to Baba. Our giving can become quite subtle. If we find that we badger ourselves for having committed a misdeed, we can give that badgering to Baba. If we find ourselves trying to justify our behavior, we can give that justifying to Baba. We can even give to Baba our resistance to giving him our samskaric pattern. And if we give even the giving itself to Baba, it becomes a loving act of sweet release of one's whole self to the beloved. And in return, one experiences infusions of Baba's love. It's very helpful if we try to open our feelings to Baba. That way, no matter what thoughts or feelings come up, we can shuffle all the samskaric residue of these thoughts and feelings to him and accept the gift of his cleansing. He has opened up for us the doorway to freedom. He has already paid the price through his vicarious suffering for us. We are accepting his sacrifice when we continuously give everything to him and accept his grace. We then experience salvation from turmoil and conflicting emotions. We must realize that the Master is really omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. We depend upon his love flowing through us to release us from the faults. He draws us into his level, which is universal and complete. He reveals to us our completeness. He saves us from ourselves. We experience the lifting of burdens from the heart. We see that we can let go of our fears and we become free from worry. Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. This is so integral to his everything of Darwin's. Yeah. Let me just ask, is there anybody that can describe their experience of giving something to Baba and how it has worked in your life? Now who's the host? Is Jaysima?
Anthony. Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm asking, Anthony has raised his hand.
Anthony first? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try to do this here. Yeah, I mean, it really struck me what Darwin said at the beginning of this passage, just becoming aware of that first little rattle of the samskara starting to happen and working when you notice it on that level. And you know, Mickey at Temple of the Universe has really talked a lot about that when you're going about your day, you're at work, something like that, and then somebody says something that provokes an anger or something that makes you want to, say something negative or react. And then, becoming aware the second you feel the slightest little movement in your heart of that samskara, your heart getting tight, your muscles getting tight, and then you go to speak. And then right at that moment when you're about to speak, you become aware of it. And instead of opening your mouth, you kind of just take a breath and you it's almost like you have to roast a little bit in that feeling because you want to blurt something out. And in not doing that, it hurts. I mean, it makes you boil inside to not release that anger to say that. But if you do say it, you're just going to make the Sanskara worse. So, it's kind of catching yourself in that first moment, not doing what you were about to do, sitting there with the discomfort, and then letting that Sanskara kind of burn itself. And what I found is, like, the more I do that, when I'm in a similar situation again, that reflex is there to do that again next time, and you're better at it. And it's almost like a muscle that you just build over time, the ability to not do that thing and to just sit there and withstand that discomfort of not letting it out. But yeah, absolutely. I found that it's like a muscle that grows, and and then you'll get good at one type of Sanskara, and then of course Bob will throw something different at you right when you're think you're getting good at this, and that kind of seems like it's never ending, but it is always getting better. So
Yeah, beautiful description of what we are stuck with, having to hold our reactions at bay and wait for to be able to respond rather than react. But yeah, beautifully described.
I totally agree with what you said, Jeff. I mean, absolutely, over time, things have gotten so much better. It's indescribable. It's just like a whole nother life. But, then there is that much more to go still. But I guess you get some good confidence, even though there's a lot to go. You're like, oh, wow, this is really working. So,
yeah. But, do you find the process of it kind of fulfilling in itself? Meaning,
I feel like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That the result, the final result is, is one thing, but even the process is fulfilling.
I think it is. It used to not be as much because there was so much darkness in there. It seemed like it was impossible to ever catch a good feeling. But, now that period is gone, and there actually are some good extended periods of feeling love and peace, I think that's what motivates me. It's like you're in the weeds, and then you do the best you can, and then you're back to being happy and feeling great. And you just see the correlation, the more time you spend in the weeds and work with it and do the best you can, it seems like it's opening up this light and this peace and happiness more. So I think it's becoming fulfilling like that, because when you're in the weeds, you're realizing, like, oh, this is great. I'm going to get rid of more of this junk, and there's eventually going to be even some more light. So yeah, it's getting more gratifying doing it, because it seems like it's finally paying off, but it didn't feel like that for a while.
Yeah. Good. No, excellent. Okay.
Eddie or Ben?
Both.
So I agree with everything you said, Anthony, and there are times where I forget. And I'll be not worrying, but anxious about, being anxious about something, and it plays and replays in my brain. And I kind of had one of those today. And in our middle room that used to be our child's room, until she moved away, is kind of our self-help room. And I have a machine that you can put your legs in and your feet, and it kind of massages you. And it's right across, some of you have heard the story before, I'm sorry. It's right across from this little sofa that I sit on to put my feet in, is this picture.
The one that Jeff has up.
Yeah, this one that Jeff has up, only mine is a print and it's bigger.
Oh, up there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's framed really pretty, and literally he's looking right at me and I'm looking right at him. I actually have to go like this a little to get pure eye contact. And he's like making fun of me for holding on to something when I could just give it to him and not be miserable. And he's like laughing with me. I'm not kidding you. It's like we're staring at each other, and this thing is rubbing me. So it's I can't move and walk away. I have to stay here and stare him in the eyes. And it was almost like, do you like suffering? Is like what I felt he was asking me. Because if you really don't like it, just give it to me and I'll take care of it. And, you know, just, it was amazing. And so, but I forget. So for a lot of the day, I had this kind of rumble in my head. And then in a minute, with humor, by the way, he just took it. I gave it.
Beautiful.
And then,
Yeah, very.
oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Can I go now? Or do you want to
Yeah.
say?
Go for it, Diane. Yeah.
So I have a couple feelings about this, and that is the fact that I even think of Baba and think of giving things to Baba right there tells me that Baba exists and is God, because this was not my default button for 65 years. I operated very, very differently. So whether I see, you know, enough layers of the onion peeled off that there's no more onion, I can look at some examples over the past few years where the heat turned off on something, the angst turned out. And I think it was because I must have really felt and believed that it was no longer in my court, that I'd given it to Baba and what will be, will be. But again, the fact that I'm even thinking this way is he's just having a blast with me.
The beautiful thing is, that it's good to know what your son's scars are, the way you would do things, and then how, you know, and the higher way to do it with Baba. You know, I mean, you know how you would have responded in the past, and you know how you respond in the present, and you can see how much work Baba has done in us.
I do feel badly though. Like today, I was at a store and things were not being handled professionally and appropriately, and the line was growing longer and longer, and everybody was moving their carts all around. It was kind of anxious, and it got me into that too. And I totally forgot to give it to Baba. Instead, I got uptight, and you know, Terry had to remind me to give it to Baba.
Yeah, there's one scene that Bao Kalchuri describes where he came in one night. He would come in to be with Baba from around 6 in the evening till whatever 6:30 in the morning, and on this one occasion, someone may know the story better, but I remember the whole gist of it. That, you know, Bob would say, now tomorrow at such and such a time, I want you to say this and that, and you know, he gave him some instruction. And then 20 minutes later, Baba, you know, repeats the same thing. You know, and did you hear? Now say it back to me. And it went on and on for hours. You know, and Bao, you know, it's like, I got it on the inside. But finally, he reacted. And Baba looked at him and said, I win, you lose. You know, I got you. I got a rise out of you. I win and you lose. So it's, you know, I mean, there he was deliberately, obnoxiously being persistent to see if he could get Bao to lose his cool. And the moment he did, then Baba says, yeah, I win and you lose. So that's one of his strategies, you might say. Anyway.
Rich.
When Diane was talking, it suddenly occurred to me, I try to analyze things from a point of view that makes sense to my perspective, at least my inner perspective. And I think for me, what a lot of this comes down to is, for some reason, I've always thought I should be in control of everything. You know, the way that guy is driving his car, I should be able to control him. And that girl over there in that truck, I should be able to control her. And then I can enjoy my drive, you know. Well, of course, that's ridiculous. It's idiotic and it's irrational, you know. But in terms of what affects me in my life, yeah, I've wanted to either avoid, big one is avoidance, or dodge or outmaneuver But what's really been happening more and more with my aging and all this stuff is I realize that, no, the truth is that, like Diane was saying, if I'm standing in line, I've actually experienced that, standing in line sometimes, and suddenly I'll just step back within myself and go, I can't control any of this. There's no control here at all. I'm not supposed to control it. Even thinking that I should is an error, you know? And of course, then at that point, you just think of Baba, you know, because that's all there is. But so for me, it's this control issue of, I don't know how we know from, even from God Speaks, from all the readings and everything, we know that the only thing we're trying to control is our sanskaric destiny, our suffering, our happiness, our joy, you know. And I'm going to bring this term up again because I reread it again. Upapog. And upapog means enjoying being enmeshed in creation, into the dream. It's your identity, you know. I'm upapogging, you know, the checkerboard of all of us right now. But the reason that means anything to me is because that's the term Baba uses for indicating that that's how we get enmeshed in creation. That's the term for what that experience is. And getting out of that upapog, the only way out is, of course, the avatar, you know, the Sadguru, Meher Baba. Well, anyway, but I think I always wanted to control.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll get it one day, but you know,
Yeah.
but then you won't want it. There'll be no creation. Let's see. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Lauren, are you up for reading it all? Feel free to pass if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. What a lucky one to read. All right. The idea that we begin to focus on Meher Baba, our real self, our ideal God or reality, instead of illusory things, and giving everything to Baba is a way of doing that. Actually, loving the master is the most direct and effective way of dissolving our sanskaras. Strange as it may seem, by focusing solely on him, concentrating on loving him purely, the other things that we are struggling with begin to get worn out from neglect. Instead of wrestling with our sanskaric complexes, we can use our efforts and energy to find the beloved within and love him with all our hearts. In contrast to the path of purging, where we are likely to feel that the master is painfully stripping us of elements we take to be who we are or what we want, the refining path of love for God involves willingly giving to him everything we have to offer because we value his truth and love rather than illusory things. Giving everything to Baba, give everything to Baba, let all desires and impulses flow through, take no action, focus on Baba in the heart, not on the desires and impulses. If we ignore or sublimate our sanskaric impulses, they fall away. Try to let them go. Rather than engage them in combat, let them fade away from neglect. Struggling with these impulses merely intensifies the I. Even during the few moments or hours you are suffering as they still try to cling to you, try to maintain the attitude of letting go. A temporary void is created when we release something to the master, and we see that it is an easy step to begin to turn the flashlight of consciousness from something to the real thing. When we let go of all other things, bliss is there. We recognize what we had never realized before, that we do not have to go anywhere to find it. So focus on the master with love, give everything to him, and concentrate on accepting his bliss. This brings about, albeit slowly, transformation within the whole of consciousness and makes it possible for us to participate in his consciousness, to merge with him in a limited way at first, but more and more as time goes on.
Beautiful. Yeah. Anything to say to that? Is that well, you know, one thing that I had to deal with, and you probably have too, is, I mean, Baba says that ideally, if you can turn to the light, then the shadows are behind you. You know, and so you don't have to try to work your way out of the shadows. They are behind you. But what I found in my own life, I had to disentangle myself from the, I wouldn't say darkness, from my hang-ups and complexes and everything, enough so that I could turn to Baba. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you know, these things were too absorbing. I was too enmeshed in it. I had to get enough unenmeshed to be able to then see Baba. But once you see Baba, once you kind of go toward the light, then all that stuff is behind you, and you don't have to do all the psychological work. But like I say, initially, for years, I had to do the psychological work. But now things, you know, as you turn more and more to Baba, those things, those hang-ups and complexes and weaknesses kind of die from neglect. You're just not going there anymore because your energies are focusing on Baba. I mean, let me ask Goer, did you find that to be kind of the case with you?
Yes, absolutely, Jeff. Absolutely. Yeah. It took me a while. In the beginning, it was not like that at all. And I went through every emotion known to man, going through my ups and downs. But in time, when I started to detach myself from whatever was happening in my life, and, you know, the not so good stuff, of course, is hard to deal with anytime. But the more I detached myself and tried to look at it from an observer's point of view and just let Baba handle it, give it to him, the easier it got. And today I find I'm in a very comfortable place where it just happens naturally. I don't even focus on whatever is coming my way, or whatever comes my way. It naturally just goes to Baba. And I'm therefore free from it, from you know, from worry or from enmeshing myself further into it. Life just flows more freely that way. And it's very liberating, actually, very liberating. So,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's.
And I've gone through some tough times. So he's taught me in many ways that the easiest and best way is to just give it to him. So, I mean, because I tried every other angle, you know, were to work it this way or that way or whatever. None of it worked, none of it. Easiest way was to just say, Baba, I give up. Now it's all up to you. And truly he takes over. He truly takes over and guides you. And so,
Yeah.
blessed.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, I found in my own case, we're gonna hear from Santa
Martha.
Barbara here.
Martha.
Well, on the heels of Go Here, I wanted to share that I've kind of gotten now to this place where if something comes up that is a recurring theme that's challenging, now it's kind of like a game I play with Baba. And I tell Baba, okay, I'm not going to do anything, absolutely nothing. I'm going to like almost force myself not to do what I usually do, because it hasn't worked for a long time. But my pull is still to do a certain action. And then I'm going to say, okay, Baba, I'm going to give it totally to you. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to text. I'm not going to write. I'm not going to go do anything. I'm just going to wait and say your name. And then I'm going to see what happens. And it really is kind of fun to see, first, how long does it take? watch my own resistance and kind of back and forth, having to pull back my usual action, and then to see what Baba does. That's all I wanted to share.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of
beautiful.
a game with Baba, a challenge, or, kind of just a fun way to do it instead of making it so dramatic for myself as usual. That's
Yeah,
all.
and not taking it so personally. I mean, making it something fun rather than something that's terribly serious and
Yeah, and also it shows me aspects of Baba I'm not used to, like, how he does it, how long it takes, or, what he does, what magical ways that he works with it, which are magical.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. I know, like a metaphor that kind of Baba flashed to me is like, if you think there's a long conveyor belt, at one end of it is all the stuff in your heart, all the strangers in your heart, and coming as boxes on that conveyor belt. And at the other end, it's all going to Baba. And in my younger days, I noticed that, like, Darwin would just let the boxes kind of go by. He might look at the titles or the addresses, but he let them go by. But me, I would take that box off and take a look at it. Well, but what about that box? And so I had like piles of boxes, and I'd open them up, and there'd be another box inside of that box, inside of another box, and everything. And I get this backlog of things, and instead of just kind of letting it go right to Baba, I had to investigate, and I had to kind of free myself. I know Erich one day said, "You Westerners, when you come up against an obstacle in your path, you make these Herculean efforts to climb above, surmount them, and get to the other side. In the East, when we have an obstacle on our path, we just fall at his feet." So I was the kind of psychological workhorse trying to get myself free from all this, this briar patch. Yeah. Okay, any other comments, or shall we go on to the next section? Okay, let's go and see if Marion, are you able to read?
Oh, yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, good.
So it's beginning with effortless effort.
Yeah.
And how far do I read?
All the way down to the end of that section.
Thank you. Effortless effort. As we gain a deeper understanding of how we create sanskaric veils, and as the activity of Baba's love grace works within us, we rise to successively higher and freer levels of consciousness, and correspondingly can focus more and more one-pointedly on the Master or God. This constant one-pointed inner focusing or meditation eventually becomes effortless. This is not meditation that is a glossing over, but a rooting out form of working. But to attain effortless effort, we must be able to control the sanskara-driven thoughts and feelings that influence us to focus on and value lesser things. At the fifth plane of consciousness, we gain complete control of thoughts. And on the sixth plane, we can completely control feelings. But we must try to get control of our thoughts and feelings at the level we are now. This is how we get that higher control, by working with our thoughts and feelings where we are now. Putting our full attention on Baba or God within keeps the inner doors open and creates a funnel that narrows our focus from the vast manyness of gross objects to the oneness that is reality. And this opens up our consciousness to the presence of God, the divine calm.
Beautiful. Is, let's see. Oh, I was thinking, Mayor Prasad isn't here, is he?
No, he's gone to Detroit.
Do you don't happen to have that quote he has on divine calm?
Hmm.
Anyway, it's a beautiful quote. If you can kind of get that divine calm, Baba says, you are loving me best. Something like that. Anyway, anything to say about the effortless effort? Darn, let's see. Let me just double. Okay, well then, oh, there's somebody in the dark there.
Ralph,
In the dark.
Ralph.
It doesn't say Ralph there.
No, it doesn't say anything, just
Oh God.
a pitch dark night with no stars.
Whoa.
So anything to say about effortless effort?
I do effortless effort versus helplessness. We had quite a few years ago, maybe 15 years ago or more, when my mother was living. She was in and out of the hospital a great deal. She was having she just had everything in the world wrong and was bedridden quite a bit. We ended up in the hospital for a procedure on a vertebrae in her back to repair it. It was called vertebroplasty. And they worked very well and were a saving grace for her, actually, because she had very bad osteoporosis, and every once in a while a vertebrae would collapse, and the pain was excruciating. And so we were in the hospital for that. And then while in the hospital, there were things floating around, and she got sick with something right there in the hospital that she caught. You know, that was transmitted from, I think it was just the flu was going around. So mother got really sick and she started having, and I stayed with her all the time. I had an air mattress. I would blow up and sleep on the floor because I felt ill at ease leaving her alone. And that's just the way it was. My father was deceased. And she started having spasms, you know, like Charlie horse, but it was the whole body. And she would just shake, and it was horrible. Of course, it frightened her and is also very painful. And she was helpless for a way to deal with it. They were just terrible things, almost like seizures, you know, like epileptic seizures. They were quite violent. They became worse and worse and got like violent. And this was going on, and I was asking the nurses to get the dogs. Finally, they did some blood work. They found her electrolytes were way out of whack. Her potassium was particularly low from use of diuretics, and they weren't replenishing her potassium. Apparently, I don't know if it was oversight, no matter. The thing was, and I was there, I was just standing at the foot of her bed for many hours. And in the night, I was just totally fatigued. It was going on for hours, 24, for a day and a night. And I was thinking, I started remembering how Baba had those seizures and shook. And I thought, this may claim my mother's life. These seizures, could kill her. And I felt helpless for what to do. I was nothing I could do, but I felt just horrible and was fatigued to the point that I wanted to lay on the floor and just go to sleep. And I said, I can't. As long as she's suffering like this, I cannot go just do that. And they did start giving her potassium, and slowly, the seizures diminished. And finally, I called a relative, and who was the wife was a very good nurse. And I asked her if she could come and relieve me for a while and be with my mother. And she did. She came, and I was able to go home and get some sleep and a shower and rest up. And then I returned after about 6 or 8 hours and back in the saddle. But things had improved in that amount of time. She began to get some relief from that. But the feeling was not that Baba was to blame or anything. The feeling was, how do I live with this? How do you resign to a thing and feel, not that you don't want to feel comfortable. You want to be with that person in their suffering. But it's their suffering, though we don't understand it, perhaps. It's so that what is my point was, what came to my mind was the point of detachment. And then we heard Charles tell about his being with Elizabeth in church. And Charles was going through a difficult time with some political issues, race-oriented political issues in his college. He was president of the student body. And he went to church with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth had the program, the itinerary for the sermon, what songs would be sung and at what point, in the program. And she wrote something on it, and she handed the program to Charles. And on it, she had written, detachment is not lack of concern or loss of concern. And then the word paradox.
Yeah.
And that was the experience. In a situation where we are helpless and no place to turn, in your heart, no place to turn, we look, the strength, Baba. And I thought of Erich passing. I thought, well, that's, I thought, what I thought was just hang in, just try to hold on, you know. And so I felt Baba did strengthen me through that. Just, you know, you hear Baba talks about shakings when he wants to loosen sanskaras up, the pressure, the puts on pressure and heat and has an earth, then bring an earthquake on. So
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean,
that-
the kind of a lifetime of love
to get
and then having to
to
let
give
go.
to Baba, but Baba has to come within, and we recognize and the strength to, maybe there would have been something positive I could have done, creative. There could have been avenues, but I felt that I was ball and chain, emotionally, you know, dysfunctional. Right? So I won't belabor it, but it was my feeling. And so things pass, but we do want to have Baba's strength
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
conviction to deal with challenges and know that that he is there, that he's with us. In this case, how could I deny that Baba was there when the experience was, all I was seeing was that my mother was suffering like as the same similar thing. Like I couldn't help but think of Baba having those tremors at the end of his life.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Yeah. What does Rich have to say?
Well, Ralph, I think it's a story, and in terms of surrendering to Baba, I was there when my mother died, and it was a very unusual situation because I had made arrangements to go to Myrtle Beach on a specific flight on a specific day. And so my sister called me. It was a day earlier. She said, I think this is it. Mom's going to die. So come back. So it was a 500-mile drive. And so it was 240 miles back to Denver for the plane flight. So I got there. She died at 2 a.m. And she suffered for years with emphysema from smoking. But I had bought a camera, and all I could do was read the instruction books on the camera while I'm sitting there waiting for, Mom's blood oxygen level to go down far enough. So that's all I did. My sister was there. My dad was there. My mom's husband, of course. But I felt, right or wrong, I felt very detached from it. I wanted her to go because she was suffering, and it was ridiculous to live like that. But that wasn't my karma. It was her karma, But here's the catch to the whole story. So she dies. My sister says, I'll write up the obituary and organize a service and blah, blah, blah. And I did this and that. And then I drove straight back to Denver to catch my flight. And I ended up it was the biggest family reunion in years and years and years. And I'm not there. And so there I am. And so one of my good nephews called and said, I was on the center, and he said, what's going on? How come you weren't here? Basically, he's a very nice guy. He's a great guy. And I said, oh, well, this was all planned out by Baba. I didn't put it in those terms, but I said, no, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. And it happened to be probably the most formidable way Baba could have helped me deal with my mother's death, by being on the center, probably most likely helping her to move forward as best she could, with her death. And it was incredible. I was just astonished at the whole thing, the way it worked out. It's just the way Baba works. No explaining it, but he's at the command. If it's important, he'll be there. Anyway, A little off subject, but I guess I inadvertently surrendered to Baba with his plans for all of that for me.
Yeah. No, a lot of people come to the center when they lose those that are near and dear to them. And it's a healthy thing to do. Baba puts it in a much larger context. Anyway, we've got.
Martha.
I just wanted to celebrate your love, Ralph, your intense love and devotion to your mother, putting yourself aside. And I think the greatest love that we can have is to witness someone we love suffering and passing over. And you did it so beautifully. And whether you were conscious of Baba moving in or not, all of your years with Baba, that was the foundation. He took over and he did what he had to do and you did what you had to do. And I just want to celebrate your love for your mother and the beautiful way that you were with her. I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Beautifully said.
Remind you, she did not pass away in that instance. She survived another few years, actually. But that was probably the most strenuous instance of an isolated instance that I can recall, and challenging to me feeling that God, I've been with Baba and a long time, and I don't have the resources to act in this instance, to get some attention, to help her. And so you find, and it's killing me to boot. I feel like I'm shaking inside, almost like she's shaking outside. And so I said, repeat Baba's name, and of course, do it all wrong. Just irreverently say Baba, 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 and think it's going to make a miracle happen.
Yeah.
Baba wants to live within us, I think. Yeah. Jai Baba. Thank you, Mark.
Baba.
Yeah.
Meher Sagar. We're going on to the next chapter, chapter 11, changing our paradigm. How about reading all the way through the divine realm, the dual realm as well?
Okay. Changing our paradigm. Why strive to become something in the dual realm when you have to let the whole realm go? Darwin Shaw. We are so much more than our dual nature. Meher Baba comes to free our consciousness from the realm of duality and take us to a much higher level. But we have to dare to leave behind the paradigm of the personality, to plow through the forest of self, part the underbrush, and accept the bliss, light, and truth that is our real identity. We have to dare all for God. Through faith in Him, we are enabled and encouraged to do this. The dual realm. What is this realm of duality that we are transcending? It is the level of all the opposites, gain and loss, beginning and ending, past and future, pleasant and unpleasant, happy and miserable. The opposites are tied in with the ego and a sense of the personal, as in, I am happy, I am unhappy, I have suffered loss, I have made great gains, I have done something wonderful, I have done something terrible. The I is predominant through all these vacillations between the opposites, and it governs our moods and our sense of who and what we are. In the dual realm, we are also involved in desires nearly all day long, even simple desires. What shall I eat? What shall I wear? What do I do now? What shall I do next? Will the car start? Our consciousness is caught at that level. And Baba wants to disentangle us from all of that and show us that we are not the personality self at all, that we are the soul, we are spirit, eternal, sovereign, and free from all of the illusory functions of the dual realm.
Thank you. Anything to say to that? I've said to most of you, and you've heard it, but after a meeting, this is back around 1970, after a meeting, we're having cookies and apple juice that Jean has got together for us. And we're standing around in Darwin. I'm a young guy. I'm kind of been with Baba for a couple of years, but he turns to me and just kind of nonchalantly he says, "Jeff, you are not the personality self." And inside I thought the whole object was to get to know my personality self so thoroughly and then go on improving this personality self until it reaches the goal. And he's basically saying you're just barking up the wrong tree. And I thought the whole purpose to go within my personality self. I didn't know there was another within. And I discovered, I didn't know what he was talking about at the time, but it made me aware that maybe there's another within that's different from this personality self. And that's that other within, the realm of the spirit that he was giving me a hint about. That's all he said, but it did kind of like shatter the personality paradigm for me. I mean, it suggested that, you got it entirely wrong, Jeff. Not what he didn't say it with any, you just kind of matter of factly. So but we have this, the paradigm of the personality self is more unexamined than we might think. Because it seems like, well, it's the whole thing. If I can get this thing working right, I'll have it. But it's really getting beyond this personality self. Anybody have anything to say there? I mean, Diane is just sitting around on the sofa there. I mean, she's probably got something to say. Oh, we got a couple of fish on the line here.
Rich.
Yeah, Jeff, you nailed it. I think I've really struggled with that almost all of my life. It's a weird thing because if you think you're trying to move towards a direction, then usually you've got some unloading to do or some goal to achieve, like being loved. Oh, I want to be loved. I want everyone to like me. But I'd like some people to love me. And that's a hard one to get around because if you feel that need, you start identifying, well, other people love each other. How come I don't, and that group of sanskars is really tough for me. I've had to surrender to Bob in that way of just accepting the place I'm at because it's what I need to pursue the divine versus, the upabhag, the creation.
Yeah.
That is right on Darwin's chapter. He's nailing it right there, I think. He's really nailing it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind hearing it again. Would that be? Am I the only one? Could Mayor
Say that again.
read it again? Could Mayor read it again? Would that be too much trouble?
Yeah. Go ahead. Changing our paradigm. Yeah.
You want me to read it, Jeff?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Changing our paradigm. Why strive to become something in the dual realm when you have to let the whole realm go? Darwin Shaw. We are so much more than our dual nature. Meher Baba comes to free our consciousness from the realm of duality and take us to a much higher level. But we have to dare to leave behind the paradigm of the personality, to plow through the forest of self, part the underbrush, and accept the bliss, light, and truth that is our real identity. We have to dare all for God. Through faith in Him, we are enabled and encouraged to do this. The dual realm. What is this realm of duality that we are transcending? It is the level of all the opposites, gain and loss, beginning and ending, past and future, pleasant and unpleasant, happy and miserable. The opposites are tied in with the ego and a sense of the personal, as in, I am happy, I am unhappy, I have suffered loss, I have made great gains, I have done something wonderful, I have done something terrible. The I is the predominant through all these vacillations between the opposites, and it governs our moods and our sense of who and what we are. In the dual realm, we are also involved in desires nearly all day long, even simple desires. What shall I eat? What shall I wear? What do I do now? What shall I do next? Will the car start? Our consciousness is caught at that level, and Baba wants to disentangle us from all of that and show us that we are not the personality self at all, that we are the soul, we are spirit, eternal, sovereign, and free from all of the illusory functions of the dual realm.
Yeah. How about reading the next one? Let's see. Can we get Tony Paternetti to read it? Coming out of hiding there.
Okay. The habitual paradigm?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole construction of what we take to be factual is illusion, not real at all. But we are accustomed to it and have accommodated ourselves to it because it conforms to reasoning. Therefore, at the outset, as spiritual aspirants, we have to let go of the mind and rise to the level of the spirit. In other words, we have to consciously begin letting go of the habitual paradigm that has a hold on our consciousness and is locked in with reason. This habitual paradigm is a prototype or basic pattern of thinking we have that consists of limitations that seem to constitute reality, because these limitations are corroborated by reason. It is a whole system we each have developed in our consciousness, and we do not even know that we have this system. It is a system where we work at the level of conditions, and it consists mostly of limitations and dependence upon contingencies. We postulate that certain conditions cannot come about unless other conditions are in place. And we think that one condition is counteracted by another condition, which we believe depends on certain contingencies. This is the level of conditions. Really, this is the level of confusion. Our life is a spiraling process toward truth. Changing the paradigm of who we think we are and what we value is part of the spiraling process of consciousness propelling us from one level to a higher level. Instead of letting our consciousness and our lives go along randomly, we need to take control. However, letting go of the mind and rising to the level of spirit does not mean that we do not have an intellect and cannot think, but that the center of our identity moves from the mind to the spirit level. The intellect is available for use, but we do not make it our headquarters anymore.
I know, I like the headquarters. Are you able to, can anyone explain this whole thing about contingencies? It's always been a little bit a little bit unclear in my.
Yeah, if Tony likes me, I like him,
Yeah.
But also that it's believing that things happen from the outside in. Again, I remember Kenmore saying that, I won't go into all of that, but that it happens from the inside out. And if you condition your insides as to the quality of being you want to have, he said, the outside will change. And so there are things I know that I want to do, and yet I find myself caught up in lately aging issues have been there. Thank God, I think I've just gotten past that. But where at a certain age your body has this effects, you can't do certain things, and you can't, and now it's too late to achieve something in this area, and it's all BS. I will put it politely.
In other words, your happiness is contingent on all of these things kind of working in the way you would like them to work.
But no more than that, because it's the idea that if you condition your inside to have to a certain kind of motivation, you can then, those contingencies fall away. Many of them just fall away. I have been lately remembering something that Baba brought into my path in like 1975. It was a book called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude by W. Clement Stone and Napoleon Hill, and who was a big insurance guy, Clement Stone. And there was one chapter where he talked about waking each morning with this affirmation: I feel happy, I feel healthy, and I feel terrific. And I've been waking up every morning for months now feeling miserable and down and uncomfortable, anxiety-laden dreams. And it was just, all right, Baba, I give up. I am going to take responsibility for how I condition my inside. And I've been saying that and modifying it. And but otherwise, though, there's so many conditions. I can't do this because of that, and I can't do that because of that. And oh, this is not be really good. It's all BS. We have the power within this illusion to, and in contact with Baba within ourselves, to set a direction for our lives and to condition our unconscious with those positive feelings that will enable you to bring it about. I'm much happier being in this state than in the other.
Yeah. I think most people, they wake up in the morning and they, when they ask, how am I doing? They check their sanskaras. They don't check their connection with Baba, the great good fortune that they have, and that, they're connected with divine love itself. They say, oh, yeah, I got to go in the boss. The boss is, really always humiliating me, abuses me. And so then you go into the day with your day colored by your sanskaras rather than the love, the link of love. But it's habitual. You check, your sanskaras become the arbiter of how you are rather than your love.
Another piece with that is that
Yeah.
anything that you're thinking that makes you feel miserable is absolutely counter to Baba's injunction to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think we ignore that being happy is, as Baba said, Mandalyev said, Baba, if Baba gives you an instruction, he gives you the capacity to carry that order out. And so we all have the capacity to be happy, and we are at times, and then we find the ego finds excuses to push it aside, to make a problem, I'm lately just saying, no, sorry, not going to do that.
Yeah. No, very good, but nice and vivid. Hey, but Marta, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I just was wondering, does it kind of mean that the stories that I tell myself that create my life limit what my possibilities are that Baba can do? So
Yeah.
I believe if I'm ABC, but Baba can go knock all that down and I can be whatever Baba wants me to be. But because, which is exactly what Tony was just saying, It's what I tell myself. But my story is so ingrained in me that Bob is trying to knock all that story down and say, listen, give it to me, because my story, I can give you so much more than you could ever, your stories will fall short. Is that kind of what it means?
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, if you consult your sanskaras, you're going to be smaller. If you consult your love, you get the expansiveness. You consult Baba and love and and yeah. And it's very hard. And when you first wake up, I mean, I always feel it's very important to spend time to where you get to that larger universal view of yourself, rather than all these little stories that are kind of narrow. Even good stories about yourself don't capture our larger being, who we are. But
Marian?
I'll add something that is not advice for anybody. It's a brief sharing. There's so much that I've, in my elder years, that I've done over the decades. It would be too much to go into. Where I am now, I know I get the gift from time to time of conceptual understanding, not intellectual, but conceptual. Conceptual is the lay of the land, the territory I'm in, not intellectual. So I get to have this gift of every once in a while I have the lay of the land that I'm in, and that is to separate out some of my voices, because I know this is the shift on the whole planet of shifting into the fifth dimension of spirit having the human experience rather than humans trying to be better. So with that, knowing, I too have my morning. I had to laugh at what you were saying about getting up in the morning, because my to-do list kind of runs through my head when I'm waking up. And then I have along here next to my computer, all my post-its, dated. So, and this one, as I'm reprogramming now, my brain, I'm in the process of reprogramming my brain. So to say, today is going to be a great day. Well, I have to remind myself to say it because I'm so used to doing my to-do list. Like I got to do this, got to do that today, yada, yada, yada. And so, and that's not new to any of us, that phrase, today's going to be a great day. That's not revelatory for anybody, but it's like I never heard it before at the place of consciousness that I'm in now, because I can feel my resistance. So one of my, I call it tools in my toolbox. I have lots of tools in my toolbox. So if I use the metaphor, I love metaphors. If I'm going to build a mansion, I better have a power saw and lots of bolts and nuts and hammer, all kinds of tools. If I'm just going to put a little picture on the wall, all I need is a little tack hammer and a picture hook, you know? So it's being appropriate of what I pull out of the toolbox for what I need in the moment. So I have different things. One is gazing into the distance every morning out my window here in New York City. And I have a very fast statements that I look up at the sky and say to Baba, you acknowledge I am the object of your positive attention. Am I appreciating your continual gaze on behalf of my well-being? And today, no matter where I'm going, no matter what I'm doing, no matter who I'm doing it with, I will be in conscious awareness that you two are right there with me, loving me, appreciating me, helping me. So it goes on and on and on very fast. It's called my morning vibration, looking out the window at the sky. But what it does, it totally, there's no room for mind chatter. So in that time, there's no room for mind chatter. And it's mind chatter that's insane. It's insanity. So that's what Baba's name, you know, continually repeating it. But sometimes I have to do some other things. So I have all these tools in my toolbox. And one of them is to differentiate between human Marian and my God self, my oneness with Baba. And so I'll have that conversation with, I've taken it to be only natural as human identity to resist the expansion into the void of creating new into the void and expanding and in this universe and opening to even beyond creation where there is no creation. So with that, I'll have my Marian self when I'm really there's something I want to step into that's sort of new and different and very expansive and creative. She says, no, I am not going. I don't like it. It's not familiar and I'm staying right here where I am and you can't make me. And so I have to really, it awakens my empathy toward this. So I do not get rough with my, or criticize that aspect of me, but find empathy in my heart for that aspect and find some way to bring her along on the journey in a nice way. And at some point she transforms into my higher self. So I'll end it with that because I have all these different tools in my toolbox. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. We're coming, looks like we're coming down to the end. Oh, well, we've still got a few fish in the pond here. Yeah.
I wanted to make a quick comment. After listening to Marion, I was thinking about in my reading lately, Baba, some of the stuff Baba emphasizes that you can only free your consciousness from sanskaras as a human while you're in the gross world. So we're not really going to the subtle planes to do all this. We're relying on Baba to do that work for us and take us where we're useful to him. But it's in the gross world, gross consciousness. So we can't just float off into nothingness, you know, and be infinitely conscious. So we're always going to be in the gross world, being aware. And I think that's what Darwin's book really is speaking to, is how do you do it? You know, and it is a bit of a mystery. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Now go for it, Tony.
Yeah, just when Marta was talking at one point of the question of, can Baba do this? You know, reorient your being. And it reminded me of something I posted to Facebook and I just put it in the chat. And it reminded me of the Dolly Parton lyric. But if any of you just now click on it, it takes about a minute to watch, and it's how easily and quickly Baba can do this.
Is it something
How
you
quickly Baba can take down a whole ego structure that seems like it's so full of conditions and climb and all that, and it's if you just click on it, it'll run by itself. It's about a minute.
Okay. Are we going to see it, or is this?
We can't. Can you put it on the screen?
We
first,
thought you
Tony?
were going to play it to us, Tony.
Yeah, can you play it, Tony, on the screen or not? The screen share?
I don't know how to share. I can.
Well, the host has to make. You can do it.
Well, if I talk, it'll keep this.
Meher Sagar probably know. Meher, do you know how to instruct him to share the screen?
Yeah, there is share screen button, but I think host has to give the permission. Jessima, you need to give the permission.
Because he's gone. Is he gone? I think he's gone.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
Jay Sima slipped.
Jay Sima slipped away.
Well, we'll see if he comes back.
If you click it, you'll see it on your own screen.
Okay.
It'll flip, or you can save it for after the chat. It's how quickly Baba can and effortlessly can take down these big sanskaric superstructures, and it's fun.
Here, I thought I'd just occurred to me. There was a fellow that was here recently. Some of you know him, Craig Ruff, and he shared this exchange with me that he had with Erich. Now this is I've shared this before. I don't know if I shared it here, but it's kind of postgraduate Baba. He was there. He's worked at the trust compound for, for about 40 or 50 years, Westerner from Chicago. And he would be there with, Mani and Erich, Rano, and Balna too, and all of them. And so early on, this is back in the 70s, they were having trouble with the water situation at Mehrabad because of drought. And so he had come up with a whole study of what to do about the situation. And so he was presenting this to the board of trustees. And so he was going on, sharing this, but he reached a certain point where he went completely blank. He couldn't remember his thread of thought, and he just completely stopped. And then the trustees all started talking amongst themselves, and all of his work was just completely lost. And so he, felt humiliated. And afterwards, he was, Erich was, as he would normally do, put all the chairs away, because people get up and leave and they don't put their chairs, back under the table or anything. Erich had that unenviable job. And so he says to Erich, I just went blank. I was so humiliating. I was so humiliated right there in front of all the trustees. And Erich went over to him, took him by the shoulders and said, "How can you be humiliated when you don't even exist?" Now how can you be humiliated when you don't even exist? I mean, that's really way out there. That's off the deep end, folks. Anyway, I just thought, you don't, that's not something he would say in Mondley Hall or anything. Those are kind of back channel sort of remarks.
I know, but Jeff, doesn't that just put it in perspective? I mean, under any circumstances, we can tell ourselves that.
Yeah.
We don't even exist. That's really funny.
Yeah, because the personality self, that, what do you mean I don't exist? I am my personality self. And then Erich is blowing that whole thing to smithereens. Anyway, I think anybody have a closing quote?
Yes, Jeff, I do.
Okay. Now, Tony's got his hand raised, but I don't know what that means.
Go ahead, Tony.
I think it's just still there from before. Go ahead.
Okay.
And then we'll have a few moments of silence after this.
Okay, so I think this is very apt to what we were discussing today. Baba says, if you become addicted to God, then all your problems are solved. Go on drinking the divine wine of love until you become one with God. It is good to be addicted to the love of God. Jai Baba.
Yeah. Read it once again, and then we'll have a moment of silence.
If you become addicted to God, then all your problems are solved. Go on drinking the divine wine of love until you become one with God. It is good to be addicted to the love of God. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you all for showing up. I there's one thing that there's one younger person named Margie Connor. Sometimes she goes by Margie Gluck. And then there's a woman named Elisa Dreyfus. Well, I mean, Genovese. We thought of this as something that might be interesting to do. I'll just throw it out here. We call it Generation XYZ Sahavas. And what we would do is we'd all kind of get together to kind of outline the thing, it would be how does Baba show up in your life? How do you remember Baba in the course of the day? And it would be all the different generations. And so what would happen is we'd all come together, and then we'd all go out to breakout groups, and there would be like people of different generations all in the same group. And it would be just interesting for people to share how they remember Baba, how Baba shows up in their life. Because we kind of feel like there's a kind of a generation gap, and it's really not a generation gap because we're all doing the same thing. We're trying to remember Baba throughout the day, and they're just, different ways of doing it according to your generation sometimes. Some of us older people are not so handy with all the media and all of the technology that is accessible. So anyway, I thought it'd be very interesting, and I'll kind of mention that as we get closer, because it would be wonderful. We're thinking of September 2nd at 1:00 in the afternoon, which is a Saturday. But it would be great to all of you to be a part of that, and it'd be kind of fun to hear from one another. And when you're in these little breakout groups, you get to meet these people that you might not normally meet from all around the country. It won't be just us. There'll be a lot of different people showing up. So anyway, I think it's Nasreen is somewhere. We got to have the final.
Yeah, Nasreen is in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you.
Baba.
I love that. I love her Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you.
Hey, there's Patty. Patty just showed up. Yeah.
Actually, Jeff, I've been here the whole time, but we had just gotten off of a camping trip. So there was a lot to be done, but I heard everything and I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, it was really, really very beautiful. Very beautiful. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Deborah Lessing.
Yeah. How do you say Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai in German? Oh, darling.
The same way you say it in English.
Oh! What was I thinking?
Although, is there a word in German for avatar, or is it just altar?
No, there is no other word.
It's avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically an Indian word that's been imported.
Yeah, used in Germany the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Marjapan, we didn't see her, but she's there. And yeah, anyway, see, next week, is next week the first of next Sunday is we'll still be doing effort and grace.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of paradigm is very interesting, because it's one of those huge thought structures that we kind of buy into, and then we're kind of bound by it. So it's very worth looking into and exploring. Oh, hey, I got a great quote. 1 second. I've got two quotes. That one of them is from it's a prayer of Mother Teresa. Lord, break my heart so completely that the whole world falls in. Lord, break my heart so completely that the whole world falls in. And that's, I mean, who talks like that? Stockbrokers don't, lawyers don't, politicians definitely don't. No, I'm just
Sounds like the drowning ant story.
now this one here is by T.S. Eliot. He was American, but he went to England, and he basically is considered a British poet. But he in just kind of ordinary vernacular English, I always like this. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
Mhm. Oh,
Isn't that a
yes.
beautiful
Beautiful.
way of describing?
Yes, I love that quote. Yes, that's beautiful.
We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
Beautiful.
Just, some of these guys, they just come, I don't know, they download this stuff from
He nailed it. Yeah.
the other realm. What I like, Mickey Singer, who's a very spiritually figure, you might say, in describing Meher Baba. And I like what he said. A friend of mine who worked with him for about 7 years, this is down in Florida, Mickey Singer's whole thing was it's all within. You don't have to go out to find anything. And my buddy was going to go to India, to the Mehrabad, to Baba's tomb. So he felt a little bit shy in front of Mickey to say that, he was going out somewhere, So he said, but, so he kind of sheepishly shared that he was going to the tomb of Meher Baba. And Mickey looked at him and said, noticing his little discomfiture, said, but don't you know, he's the one looking after all of us. What a beautiful way of referring Baba, the one looking after all of us. So I'm reminded of the same thing. Anyway, our feet are stained.
Thank you. That's the best way.
Our feet are stained, huh? Yeah, that's it.
Our feet are stained, but our feet are stained.
Feet are stained.
When you're in Georgia, your feet get all orange with clay.
Red clay, huh?
Yeah. All right.
Good night, all.
Jai Baba to
Jai
all.
Baba.
Yeah,
Jai
thank you,
Baba.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Jai Baba.
You
Jai
can
Baba.
Robin. Jai
Hey,
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba. Well, see you all when we do. Love to you, Marge, and love to Jack. I don't know if you're there, but you might be sleeping. Oh, okay, good. Yeah. And Marcia. And the one on Malabar Hill. Jai Baba.